So my ultimate goal on hunting and everything that I work for every year is killing the oldest buck that I could possibly kill. May not necessarily be the biggest, but hopefully it's always the oldest. So to explain this property that I'm hunting, it's approximately 5 to 6 acres. It's a ridge that follows a river approximately 2 to 3 miles. It is a huge travel corridor for deer. The does bed on the hillsides alongside there, and when the rut comes, these bucks will travel that ridge and try to scent does and get after them. So it's not really a great early season or late season hunting place, but it is incredible for the rut. Unfortunately, it's open woods. There's not a lot of undergrowth. So it makes it very hard to use calling tactics, rattling tactics to get the attention of these bucks and come off this hillside. Because once they come over that hill and they don't see what they want to see down through that hillside, a lot of times I can't get these bucks to come down. So I've had this property for 5 or 6 years. And within them 5 or 6 years, I've hunted it several times. I've had a lot of nice bucks on it, and I've just never had a ton of luck on this property. It's dawned on me several times that maybe I just wasn't hunting it right, maybe I didn't have the right access, and it's possible that these deer were detecting me before I was even in there. So I changed everything. I changed my access point. It was a longer walk. I had to walk on the backside of a thicker area that was gonna cover me from the rest of the woods, and I had to go closer to the top of the ridge. This move was gonna give me a position to where I could still hunt these deer. I could use all my tactics closer to the top of this ridge, have better access, be out of their wind, and have a better opportunity of these deer responding and coming down this hillside and giving me an opportunity. I gave it a good week or so, let everything calm down. My scent got out of there, it rained. Now we're going into that first week of November and it's time to start hunting. Within the first few days of sitting in the stand, it was obvious to me that I had made a better move because I'm immediately starting to see bucks. I'm seeing them move along the hillside. I'm seeing them respond to my rattling, my calling. I'm getting opportunities that I've never had on this property before. These deer were coming within 10 to 15 yards from me, at the point where there was a couple times where, I won't lie, it wasn't real easy to pass some of these bucks. Sometime around the end of the first week of November, early in the morning, I had a big buck right behind me. He was within 20 to 30 yards. I wasn't sure what buck it was, but by how cautious he was and with his body language, it was apparent that he was a mature buck. I stood up, I grabbed my bow, and I sat there, and that he would come in close enough and give me a shot. So I sat extremely still and waited. I turned my head to look back at that buck and he was gone. I know he had a rack, but I just couldn't see what he was. So that morning, very excited about knowing that there was a big mature buck in that area, and it made me want to step up my game. While sitting in the stand that morning, I came up with an idea that I was going to try. I decided to take all my wicks, soak them with 2 bottles of raw estrus. As I got out of the stand, I got down every 50 to 150 yards, and I would take 1 wick off and I'd hang it in a tree. And I circled my property all the way down to my access point where I came in. The things I'm taking into consideration: we're during the rut or the pre-rut. We know these bucks are traveling these ridges. The chance of them traveling through that hillside through the night is a lot better than them cruising through there in the daylight. So I'm gonna draw the attention with that scent down in there through the night a lot more than in the daylight. And that's gonna put the illusion that there's a doe and heat in that area. And those bucks are gonna be drawn to that area. They're gonna wanna stay there until they figure out what's going on. They don't wanna just leave knowing that there could possibly be a doe and heat in that area. That allows me that opportunity the next morning when daylight cracks to have them bucks close to me and make that opportunity better for myself. The next morning, I came back, I got in the stand extra early. I let things settle in. I rattled a couple times just to get the attention of deer that possibly might be moving back to their bed and moving along the ridge line. And sure enough, I had 2 or 3 bucks around me, good sized bucks. They're working their way up and down there. That whole morning I was seeing bucks. It dawned on me, wow, this is a new tactic that I've never used before. Priming an area the night before could potentially be something that gets them bucks in the area, making a great morning hunt during the rut. Approximately 15 to 20 minutes, I looked up the hill and there stood a large buck. It looked to be about 8 points and some very tall tines, but I haven't had history with this buck. But this is a big buck. And it dawned on me, and I'm looking at his ears and I'm thinking, well, they're about 7.5 inches, so that's gotta be a 12, 13 inch tine. This is a massive 8 point, the biggest 8 point that I've probably ever seen on the hoof. At this point, I've decided, you know what? I can't pass this up. It was obvious. He was heading right for me. He stopped about halfway down the hill and you could tell he just wasn't sure what was going on or if what he wanted was down there. So I grabbed my extinguisher, flipped it down to a doe bleat, and just made a real light doe bleat. Well, that gained his interest. Within the next 30 seconds, he started walking right down to me. Now, right down in front of me, there's a big scrape. That deer come down to that scrape. He sniffed around that scrape for a while, and I watched him for a good 4 or 5 minutes, just lip curling, looking around. This deer's standing here at about 30 yards behind a tree and some brush. He's sniffing in this scrape, he's looking around, and you can tell he's trying to make a decision. Does he want to go left and investigate the situation more? Or does he want to go right and make his way out? If he goes right, there's a good chance that he's decided what he wants isn't down there and he's not willing to make a chance to investigate it anymore. So he finally makes his decision and he's going right. At this point, I realize I put my HHA sight on 20 yards. I reached for that string, I pulled back, got to full draw, and I realized this is gonna happen. Yes! He's a big boy. Oh, goodness. I don't know the deer. I have no experience with him, but man, his tines looked massive. But when I got up there and I got about 15 to 20 yards from him, it was obvious that I'd shot the right deer. I was so excited. This deer had a 13.5 inch G2 on the left side, 160 inch 8 point. This was the biggest 8 point that I have ever killed. Had mass like none other, had a huge body. It was obviously a 5 or 6 year old deer. This deer made my day. It is one of the funnest hunts I've had in a long time. One of the key elements of this hunt was being willing to be open-minded enough to realize that maybe I hadn't chose the perfect hunting spot and maybe I needed to make a move. Maybe I needed to change my tactics to make this a better property. I needed to do the research and make the change to make it happen. Another big key element is knowing that I had a thicket behind me, that I could do a little bit more rattling with my black rack, make a little bit more noise with my extinguisher, and I would still have the opportunity to fool that deer into thinking maybe there was a doe behind me or a doe down in that ridge. Another key element to this hunt, I think, was priming the area. I do believe that got all them bucks up and moving in that area. You know, we're talking about first week of November, when these bucks, that's what they're doing. They're covering all these ridge lines. Even at night, when you're not sitting in that tree stand, these deer are covering that ridge line. So when I'm hunting these mature bucks, obviously I'm very cautious about my wind. But I also know that we're hunting the rut, and the truth of it is you can hunt a wind all you want, but we also know you don't know where that buck is. That's why I take my scent control extremely careful. I'm very cautious with it. I use Phase for my gear. I use Phase body wash. I make sure I wash every time, and I make sure my gear stays scent proof.